So the third component of digital politics is true citizen representation. So that's getting money's influence out, that's getting corporate influence out, and it's really going to the will of the majority that if 70, 80% of Americans want something, that policies should be shaped around what Americans want rather than Americans being forced into two different boxes and having to choose the lesser of two evils. We want people to be able to be happy with their choices. And so we're talking about a more direct democracy, not completely direct. Ultimately, on our digital democracy platform, there's going to be a polling system that everyone's going to know is super secure, and they're going to know that their voice is being heard. And so we're actually going to do polling of where do you stand on this issue? Where do you stand on that issue? The idea is that future approved politicians would shape their policies around their constituents. First, it'll be easy to do it on a federal level, but then we'll also be able to do it on a state level. And then even more intricately as we evolve, we have to go from the top down. But the idea is anyone that's going to be considered a future approved politician, they're going to look at their constituents. They're going to look at the polling of where their constituents stand on policies. And that's what they're going to represent. And that's how they're going to shape their policies. It's going to be different from state to state, from county to county in certain situations. At first, it'll be a little more complex. Polling will be there. In the early beginning, while we only have a small percentage of Americans on our polling, we're going to use aggregated data. We're going to use credible sources. We're going to build different algorithms that aggregate our polling with their polling. As we get more and more participation from Americans, and we have a larger percent, then the polling of the other organizations will shrink until ultimately virtually most people will be on our platform. And then we could at some point say that is the most accurate form of polling, and that's the most accurate data to collect of what America truly wants, and even breaking it down by constituencies. True citizen representation, it's about getting that money out. There's a one-stop shop for all politicians. How does money work in politics? They need to outrace their competitor. Right now, 95-ish percent of races are whoever spent the most money is the one that wins their race. So what happens is these guys are desperate to raise enough money to outraise their opponent. And what is that money for? It's for advertising. The money is about advertising, getting their name out there, advertising to constituents so they could get voted for. There's a huge correlation between somebody hearing somebody's name more often, it makes them more likely to vote for that person. Even if there's nothing good about them, it's just strictly by hearing that person's name again and again, getting that familiarity, they're going to vote for that person over the person they never heard of. So that causes a major disadvantage that grassroots candidates that have amazing policies, people absolutely love what they're fighting for, want them to be represented that way, but they can't raise nearly the same amount of money as their established opponents that take money from larger interests. And so that causes such a massive divide. With the progressive movement, AOC raises more money than Nancy Pelosi, and Bernie in the last Democratic primary, he raised more money than all the other Democratic primary candidates. So it's proven that people want these candidates. They want grassroots candidates to win, and it's just everything stacked against them. The money stacked against them, then also the news outlets are stacked against them. The news people are pretty much adamant that it's part of the same system. If they don't deem you electable, then they're not going to give you any screen time. They're not going to do much at all with you if you're not considered electable in their eye. Bernie has been one of the most popular politicians for over a decade, and yet they say he's not electable. What does electable mean if he's the most popular politician year after year? It's all about the news. It's about the party leaders, the DNC and RNC, and they control everything. And they're also people, they only see a certain perspective. They're not even necessarily bad. They're living in the system how they knew it to be. They were taught when they wanted to go into politics that this is how it works. They even believe they're doing good. Relatively speaking, maybe a lot of them are. In their own mind, they're like, well, I have to do it this way to get the right amount of money, but at least I'll be doing some good. I'll be able to pass X, Y, and Z policy, but I really can't go that far off or else I can't raise the money I need to get reelected, and then somebody worse than me will end up winning. And so I need to be gray. I have to be morally gray and ethically gray because that's just how the system works. That's how you play politics. These aren't even like villainous bad people. It's just that's the system that exists today, and we need to transcend it. Now, if we have a one-stop shop, if every American knows, oh, you just go to the digital democracy platform, you see everyone that's running in a race, and then you choose who has the best message, and you choose who you feel will represent you the most or who you could trust the most. It'll kind of even be like a dating service. We'll match you with the candidates. It doesn't even matter what we believe is right or wrong on policies. You'll be able to say, these are where I stand on policies, and we'll match you to the person that best fits your stance on policies. The only thing that we want to steer you away from is that if somebody's being anti-democratic, they're using monetary interests and corporate interests over their actual constituency base. And that's when we have a problem with it. We're just going to make it very clear when there's certain biases involved in their campaign.